What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about how laws get passed in the UK. As an American, I get a bit confused about how the UK government works. So you have a lot of things that we don't have here in America, like the House of Commons, the House of Lords, MPs, the Prime Minister, the King. And so today, I just want to learn about how laws are, in fact, passed in the UK and how that works exactly. So, with that being said, let's take a look.
We have loads of people ask us to go into more detail about how bills actually go through the House and explain how laws are passed in the UK.
Yes.
Before we go into the specifics of the bill, it's important to first understand just how the British Parliament works.
Okay.
Parliament is split into two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
Right. So immediately it's like, this is nothing like the American government system. Not that one system is better or worse than the other. They're just very different. Like, we have totally different names for stuff. Like, that's a big confusion. Like, in America, we have the House of Representatives and the Senate and Congress, the President. Whereas the terms seem to be totally different in the UK. Like, it's a Prime Minister. It's a House of Commons, House of Lords. Very, very different. So this is good. If this can be explained to me on sort of a basic level, that'd be great. I think I'm not alone. Most Americans have literally, like, I'm a little embarrassed to say, we have no idea how the UK government functions, how the laws are made and passed. So this is good. This is overdue.
The House of Commons seats 650 members of Parliament, or MPs.
Okay.
People elected to represent areas of the UK known as constituencies. The House of Lords sits around 800 unelected members known as Lords.
I understand the House of Commons. That's actually easy for me. It's like the House of Representatives in the United States. Elected officials that represent different parts of your country. But the House of Lords, we don't really have anything like that. That's very confusing to me. They're not elected? Well, then, do they take any part in passing or deciding laws in the UK? That'd be very strange to me. Isn't that strange if that's true? Unelected people deciding about the trajectory of your country and your laws. But I don't know what the House of Lords really does, honestly, or what impact they have.
They're appointed by the Queen, usually at the advice of the Prime Minister, or the House of Lords Appointment Committee, established in 2000. The role of the Lords today is to hold the government to account and make sure that the laws being passed are effective and fit for purpose.
Wow, I mean, based on what I'm hearing, the House of Lords, they definitely play a role in determining what laws get passed, or determining if they're fit to become laws, or... So, yeah, am I missing something? Like, do the people of the UK, is this a concern for you, that unelected representatives are representing, the interests of the people? I guess they're appointed by the King and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is an elected representative. So maybe it's just like you have a faith that the House of Lords is in fact filled with, like, good people that are smart, intelligent, making big, important decisions, right? I guess.
They cannot veto legislation, though. They can only delay it for 1 year.
Okay. This is actually really good for me to know. They can't actually be the deciding factor of, no, this won't happen. They can't veto a law. They can delay it, which could have a pretty big impact still.
Historically, this wasn't always the case. In the past, if the House of Lords didn't like a piece of legislation that the House of Commons suggested, they could stop it completely.
Wow.
This changed due to the passing of the Parliament Acts in 1911 and 1949.
Okay.
These acts removed the veto power from the House of Lords, and instead allowed them to delay legislation for 2 years and then for 1 year, respectively.
So it seems like the UK actually, like 100 years ago, decided this wasn't, like, democratic enough of a process. Like, the House of Lords should not have the power to veto a bill or a law, which I would tend to agree with, actually. So, okay, good.
These steps majorly reduced the power of the House of Lords. In addition to this, the Salisbury Convention, which started in the 1940s, was and still is an agreement between the House of Lords and the House of Commons, which says that if a piece of legislation is in the government's manifesto, the House of Lords will not block it at the second or third reading. This again reduces the power of the House of Lords.
So the House of Lords, I mean, it's even interesting, the name, the Lords, like... It's not even a term we use in the United States. That's like a Game of Thrones style term. Like, my lord, like a very sort of British, old British sounding word, like very monarchy, like my lord, my lady, like House of Lords. Like, I almost picture people in suits of armor or with crowns and stuff. So it's interesting that this... seems to be sort of a relic of the past in the UK, when maybe it was, like, where maybe policy was actually determined by just lords and ladies and people born into power. Maybe this is sort of a remnant of, like, older British government that still exists today, and it hasn't been gotten rid of, but their power has been drastically reduced. Which makes a lot of sense to me. It's kind of like how the king still exists, but their power has been drastically reduced to being more of a representative figure of the nation. So this makes a lot more sense to me now that it's been explained.
So in the modern day, the House of Lords has a lot less power than it once did, and serves only really as a check to make sure that the pieces of legislation are fit for purpose.
I mean, it's interesting that they actually do have a little bit of power, even still. That's interesting.
This isn't to say that their job isn't useful, just that they can't cause as big a problem for the government as they once could.
Yeah.
Now we've explained the brief history of the relationship between the House of Commons and the House of Lords, it's time for the exciting bit. How the laws are passed.
Okay.
For the purposes of this video, we're going to look at bills starting in the House of Commons, introduced by the government, known as public bills. There are also what are known as private members' bills, which are introduced by MPs or lords who are not government ministers, as well as private and hybrid bills.
Okay, this is getting a little bit into the weeds, a little specific. I'm not sure what the difference between all these bill types really is, but bills get introduced in the House of Commons by the members of Parliament who come up with ideas for bills that they want to become laws. Okay, makes sense. I think we have a very similar process here in America, actually.
There's so much to discuss that we'll have to do that in another video. If you'd like us to cover these types of bills in a video, like this video, and comment below to let us know.
Yeah, for the life of me, I have no idea, like, what we're talking about with 7 different types of bills here, so yeah.
The first step towards legislation is often a green paper, which is usually vague and contains multiple policy options. These are consultation documents, introduced mainly to stimulate parliamentary discussion on the topic of legislation. Once it's been briefly discussed in Parliament, the government will usually begin consulting citizens and the public bodies which are most likely to be affected by the legislation.
Really? That's fantastic. This is great. So it starts in the House of Commons. They write it on a green piece of paper for whatever reason. That's fun. And then, but joking aside, after some discussion in Parliament, they actually go out and talk to the citizens and the public bodies that this new legislation will actually affect, which I think that's a wonderful wonderful way to go about deciding policy. Actually talking to the people in the community, the citizens that this will affect. That's great.
Once this process is finished, the government will then issue what's known as a white paper.
Okay.
This will be informed by the public consultation and contain more concrete policy proposals.
Okay.
They often include a draft bill to provide a basis for changes to be made before the bill is formally presented to Parliament.
Oh, so I thought it already went to Parliament. It starts in Parliament, barely, sort of as a rough draft. Then it's refined by talking to interested and affected parties and citizens. It's hammered down into more of a concrete white paper, a mess like what the bill or the law really is gonna be. Then it goes back to Parliament for more discussion. I love how many rounds of discussion are built around like forming and really honing in a bill to make sure it really is accomplishing something like important and that everyone agrees on. I really, really like this process so far.
Finally, a bill is formally proposed and read. This is the first reading.
Okay.
There's no debate at this stage. The bill will usually just be read to the House of Commons. The next stage is the second reading. This is when the House of Commons has its first debate on the proposed bill.
Oh, I really like this. Debate, open discussion, lots of talking about the bills. I think this is wonderful because open debate, open talk about things is really the only way to get to the bottom of it and decide what's best. For everyone to openly talk about what's good and what's bad about it. And I love the way that the House of Commons is designed, where the two parties are literally facing towards each other, very close together. Like, it's pretty intimate. Like, you're really arguing almost in somebody's personal space. And I like that. In the American government, like the House of Representatives here, everyone is pretty spread out, pretty far away from each other, honestly. And there's something that's lost there in debate when you're, I don't know, it's funny, when you're really forced to be close to someone, somehow that changes things. I don't know. I just like how it's designed in the UK.
After the debate, MPs have a vote on whether the bill should continue.
Okay.
If it succeeds, then the bill goes on to the third stage, known as the committee stage. Okay. This is when one of the committees in Parliament takes a closer look at the proposed bill. The chairman of the committee can then decide which amendments to the bill are discussed and then voted on by the committee.
So it goes to a committee after the House of Commons. I'm not really sure who is in this committee or what credentials they have, but they essentially get to decide about what parts of the bill are going to be changed or discussed, and so this committee has a lot of power. So I'm curious who is in this committee.
After this is a chance for the whole House of Commons to suggest amendments. This is known as the report stage.
Okay.
Once the whole of the House has had the opportunity to suggest amendments, the bill goes on to its third reading.
Wow.
Usually there's little debate. At the end of this stage, the bill is voted on. If it succeeds, then it goes on to the House of Lords. At this point,
Wow! I really love the British process of determining what bills are sent forth to the House of Lords. There's 4 or 5 different rounds of amendments and debates and 2 rounds of voting, and it takes a lot. I mean, this has pros and cons, right? The good part is not just anything can become a bill or a law. It goes through a lot of scrutiny. The bad thing is not just anything can become a bill or law. That can be a bad thing as well, because it can be very hard if you need a law passed, something very important. But it seems like it could get lost or in all this discussion and a bit of convoluted process if there's so many different things that have to happen for a bill to get passed. It can take a very, very long time. So if it's important, or if time is a factor and it's urgent, I could see that being an issue. But you gotta give and take a little bit. There's pros and cons. For the most part, this all sounds very, very good. Then it gets passed to the House of Lords, which again, you know my feeling on the House of Lords. Unelected people deciding stuff about the citizens of the UK. I don't know how I feel about this.
Process is repeated in generally the same format in the House of Lords.
Really?
Like in the House of Commons, the bill goes through a first reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, and third reading in the House of Lords. If the House of Lords decides on any changes to the bill, then it's then sent back to the House of Commons to be debated and agreed to there.
I mean, they were trying to say the House of Lords doesn't have that much power anymore. I don't know if I agree with that. Now that I'm hearing this, sounds like the House of Lords has quite a lot of power. They get to debate and vote on bills just like the House of Commons. They can send it back to the House of Commons for more changes and amendments. The House of Lords definitely has power. Wow.
If during this stage the House of Commons makes any amendments, it's then sent back to the House of Lords to agree to. This continues until no more changes are made.
Wow.
This back and forth procedure is known as ping pong.
Yeah, this ping pong thing. This is what I mean. Like, if you need a bill passed for the good of the country, it could really get stuck in debate for, it sounds like, a year or two at worst.
Once the ping-ponging has stopped, and both houses have agreed on the wording of the bill, it's sent to the Queen for royal assent. This is when the Queen signs off the bill and allows it to become law.
Okay.
It's a convention that the Queen always grants royal assent.
So, once it gets past the House of Commons and the House of Lords, it's sent to the Queen, now the King, and he always says yes. It's a formality. Okay.
The Parliament Acts, mentioned earlier, can be used if during parliamentary ping-pong, neither house can agree on the wording of the bill. The House of Commons, in these exceptional circumstances, pulls rank.
That's good. That's good. If they can't decide, then the House of Commons takes precedence. They get to decide if it gets passed. I think that is definitely how it should work. That is the elected body of representatives. It's interesting because it then gets sent to the king, who just says yes. In America, it is sent to the president, who has to sign it, and they sometimes have the power to veto it. So there is a single individual in the United States that has a lot of power, which seems a little different to the UK. The bill isn't sent to the Prime Minister for signing. That's not even part of this process. It's just once it's decided by the House of Commons, House of Lords, that's it. It's over. In America, a little different. One person can stop it, which is probably not the greatest system if you think about it. We elect our president, and it's a very, very, very important position, but at the end of the day, like 50% of our country probably wanted someone else to be president, so it's like, should this one individual get to decide for everyone? That is how our system works, but I would actually venture to say the UK system of passing a law might sound a little bit better, that it doesn't have that step. Although I'm still iffy on the House of Lords bit, though.
So it's clear that both the House of Commons and House of Lords play a vital role in the lengthy process of creating laws in the UK.
Yeah.
If you want to stay up to date with where bills are in this process and what MPs are debating in the House, you would enjoy our series This Week in Parliament.
Oh, well, I think that's it. Okay. That was fascinating, actually. Learning about UK government and politics is pretty darn interesting, and it's really something that Americans like myself have no idea about. We never learn about this. We never hear about this stuff. It's actually really fun. And it's also useful. Like giving me ideas for how a different system of government can work and arguably be better. So this is really great, I thought. This was by TLDR News, and I gotta give it a like. I liked this very much. If you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts on how laws are passed in the UK. If you like the process, if you have criticisms, that'd be very interesting to hear about, especially from British people who are affected by this. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK and UK culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.